We're back. I know. Did you miss me? I missed you. Hey, but we're back, and that's all that matters. So lot to talk about right now. Where have I been? Well, my laptop was broke, and the backup was terrible. It kept glitching out, freezing up, and I was waiting for a new laptop, and it just I can't use that one. So I'm using the broken one, but I have it fixed enough where it's working, and that will be my permanent setup for this thing basically, which is good because I'm tired of moving stuff back and forth. So the last 2 weeks, they've had budget meetings and they are like 2 or 3 hours long. So instead of me recording them, I've been clipping them up and putting them on my Twitter, which actually gets a lot more traction than I thought. If you want, I could put them on YouTube, but I don't know. I don't know how to do the short game. I know it has to be under a minute, and most of them are. So, but there are some things what we'll talk about in the future because it is very important, especially with the Marion County Prosecutor's Office. And I am totally going to own Ryan Mears. It's going to be great because I've been saying it for a long time, but I'm not going to spoil it too much. Man, my settings are just so messed up. I will deal with that later, though. But let's talk about the city council meeting. So their meeting was on Monday, and I was very excited about it. Why? Because there were going to be two proposals that should have been getting finalized. Only one did, the other one didn't. One was a transparency proposal, and I've talked about this many, many times. We need more transparency in government. We know that a lot of these contracts are going to people that gave money to certain elected officials. I brought it up with Hogsett, with TWG. I brought it up with other places. You just do some basic researching and you're going to find it. So now, Josh Bain, my favorite city councilor, he introduced a bill, a proposal in the ethics committee to kind of expand on it a little bit, barely expand on it. But guess what? Democrats do not like it. So basically, what it was going to be was you have to give information on your workplace of how much money they get from the city. So he was giving an example with Milestone. Another example would be like TWG. And then you have to also say what stocks that you have that would have to do with city business. That one was a little bit interesting. I'm not against it. I like it because I have nothing to hide, and I know Josh Bain doesn't either, which is perfect. It's all absolutely amazing. Plus, Democrats are very pro more government. You would think they would be all about it. I thought it was a slam dunk. There was one person on the ethics committee that did not like it. That was Frank Mascari. He's part of the Garfield Park and Beech Grove area, I think. Everybody else, uh, they were okay with it, which I loved it. And then the other proposal was going to be the investigation on the handling of Thomas Cook from the Hogsett administration. And oh boy, did I find some stuff. It got so much traction today. That's why I'm doing this video tonight, because then I found something else out about, which I'm not even sure is confirmed, but we'll talk about that in a second. But I always start off these city council meetings is my experience with it, because there really needs to be video cameras facing the counselors at all times, because a lot of them are eating, they're playing on their phone, or they're just jerking around. Nobody will do it, but this was my view. I usually sit in the back. I thought there would be more people there, but there weren't. When I got to the second floor, which is where this room is at, I think there were around 7 cops and they were in full kit. Normally, they're just wearing their uniform. Some of them, I think they're like two old guys. Sometimes they'll wear their vest, but I think they're expecting a lot of people. And there weren't a whole lot of people. And also, here's a political spotlight, Bilberry. He does the same thing that I do, but he does it in Muncie and Delaware County. Delaware County, or I think it was Delaware County, they were having their city council meeting that night too. So very cool. Glad that I'm not the only one. He's been doing a lot longer. He's got a lot more followers. He's got a lot more connections than I do than in Marion County. But I'm getting there with your help. So I was expecting more pro-Palestine people to be there. I think there were maybe like a dozen, maybe 20. but there were cops on this side and on the other side, barely anybody there, which was good because I cannot stand it when these Palestine supporters are blocking my view. In fact, one of the people from the Hogsett administration that was sitting in front of me, they moved out of their chair and went to the other side because they couldn't see anything. Very funny stuff. Last time I was at the city council meeting, it was jam-packed. In fact, I did not even see Larry Vaughn there. A lot of fireworks because Hogsett was introducing the budget. But guess what? Larry Vaughn, he came back with a punch, too. It was pretty neat. But this was the only sign that I could catch. This is one of the oldies but goldies. Listen to Dr. King's FBI booty call tapes now on YouTube. I understand some people don't like Larry Vaughn, but he is so damn funny. Apparently, this was happening while city councilors were walking in there. I actually saw Max Lewis. I didn't know that's who it was. Very funny side note, too. I was walking in, and I was going through security, and some guy was like, you ever get that you look like J.D. Vance? I was like, no. It's like, he's got a much nicer beard than I do. But anyway, so Max Lewis came over here, and he was asking city councilors what they thought about what Joe Hogsett said over the weekend. In case you were living under a rock or are not familiar with local politics, Hogsett sounded boozed up like crazy, like Stan from South Park boozed up. So let's just take a quick listen on over here.
About running from things at all?
No, I didn't get the context, so I'm not going to comment on it.
What about him saying he was sort of just joking? And, you know, a lot of people think it's in reference to what we're talking about tonight.
I really don't. I wasn't there, and I didn't hear what he said exactly. I never saw I read the quote, but didn't see the film. So
comments on what the mayor said as far as his saying that he was just joking about running from things? Nothing? Things over the weekend?
No comment.
Anything? But the mayor said over the weekend about running from things?
Let me just do this. We are starting late. I'll come back and talk with you guys when I come back.
You know, I'm not in the business of speculating on what people say. I frankly didn't understand what he was saying. I didn't understand what he meant by that. My understanding is that he has put a release out saying that he was joking. I won't speculate. If he says he's joking, then I guess he was joking.
Again, saying he was running from things and what you thought about that?
I definitely like to know what he meant by that, because that was something that was just distasteful, and it really goes to show where his head's at with this whole issue, his harassment that he's allowed to go on in the city for so long.
What do you think about saying it was a joke, that he was just joking about it?
That's an easy out. And, you know, either way, you shouldn't be joking about this. This is not a joking matter. It's not a laughing matter.
Good answer, honestly. I was surprised by that answer by Maori, but pretty good answer. So there were a couple of bills or a couple of proposals, bills, whatever, that were talked about. Larry Vaughn spoke up about a few things. I think it was about not TIF money, but bond money. I don't know. Like, we all know that about bonds. We know about the TIFs. We know most of the time they don't work, or they're using new bonds to pay off old bonds, because that is just the circle of debt in the city of Indianapolis. But the two proposals that I really want to talk about is the transparency one. And I actually want to watch the video before we get into this part.
Comments from councilors. Chair Mascari.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I was on the committee. I did pass this out just as a courtesy, but I feel this amendment, this thing goes way too far. The state representatives and state senators don't even go to this far for their ethics, and the federal government doesn't do it. I look for my counselors to vote no on this. Thank you.
Okay, well, first off, he's completely fucking wrong. Maybe not for city councilors, but definitely when I had to fill out the paperwork for state representative, I had to list the stocks that I had that had to do with state funds. Guess, spoiler alert, I have none of those, so I don't have to worry about. I am just a regular popcorn farmer, as they would say. Just a humble popcorn farmer. They call me the Orville Redenbacher of Indianapolis. Inside joke for those who follow me on Twitter. But this was the first drop of the hat. Mascari showed that he does not believe in transparency. It goes too far. It doesn't go far enough. All right. And I'm going to tell you, I got a perfect example of why, but let's just keep going.
Good. Thank you. Councilor Bain.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to thank Chairwoman McCormick for how she's handled this over the past few months. I first brought this idea to her back in January or February of this year, and the committees met 3 or 4 times to discuss it. So really appreciate everyone's feedback and was very happy to see it passed out with bipartisan support. Just to give a brief overview of what it does, it adds to our ethics disclosure form that we all fill out at the beginning of the year, that we have to disclose the funds that our employer received from the city of Indianapolis, rounded to the nearest 5,000th. Right now, we just disclose if it's more or less than $10,000. And let's say you work for a big corporation or a public university or a nonprofit. If it's complicated, there is a section of the proposal that states that the council office will give you a form that you can give to your employer, and your HR department can fill that out on your behalf. So there's really no additional burden to a counselor other than having to hand that form to your HR department. And it also adds the date of hire to your to the form for your employer. And then there's also a section that says that you have to disclose if you own stock in any company that does business with the city. The reasoning that could be important is, we all find out about developments ahead of time before they're public, and the last thing that we would want is for a counselor to invest money in a developer ahead of time, knowing that was going to happen before it's public information. The proposal itself actually doesn't restrict that. It just says that you have to disclose that information. And lastly, it says that the ethics disclosure form that you fill out has to be posted online by March 1st. We used to post them online, but we haven't for the past 15-ish years. The executive branch posts their ethics disclosure forms online. If you want to get any of ours, you actually have to do a public records request. As to what other legislative bodies do, there's obviously different standards for each level of government, but just note that there are portions of the statement of economic interest that our state representatives and our state senators do that require them to disclose stocks that they own.
That's very true. And Josh Bain made a perfect point. Just give it to the HR department. Hey, guess what? If you're working for a company that's kind of heavily involved with the city, there's a good chance you already have an HR department. That's their job. So who cares? Just give it to them. Hey, these are the rules. And plus, as an elected official should be very aware that transparency is key. We have zero trust in the government. I, in fact, have never trusted the government. I still don't trust the government. I will probably never trust the government. Sure, I'm running for office. I'm trying to help bring in more transparency to the government. In fact, I'm doing a better job of bringing transparency to the government than any of the Democrats, especially the ones on the City Council. So, where are we at right now? Mascari doesn't like it. Josh Bain explained of what the deal is, and it is a little bit surprising to me that none of these councilors have no idea what's going down the pipe. They just show up to the full council meeting and they're just like, hey, what's this all about?
Good. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President, Councilman McCormick and Bain. A couple questions, if I could. So go back to the stock options. So I have stocks. Many of us have stocks. So all the stocks that I have now, an example would be Lilly. I have to disclose that? Is that what we're saying?
You only have to disclose stock if they do business with the city. So if they have a contract
Lilly's
with the
probably
city.
does business with the city.
Yeah, I mean, it would probably depend on what kind of contract it is. Lilly's probably not really getting direct funds from us. Funds in the proposal itself is listed as something such as like a tax abatement. Council Pierce was very helpful in drafting that funds language so that we can make sure we encompass as much as possible, again, with just the goal of being as transparent as possible.
Thank you, Mr. President. One more.
Please.
So the state and federal, how does this align with the state and federal ethics guidelines?
Yeah, so like I said, each one's going to be different. With the State House, if you go look at their statement of economic interests, some could argue they have to disclose more. They actually used to put their social security number on theirs up until a few years ago. Now, obviously, that doesn't need to be public, but that.
So the reason why I'm pausing this is because I'm watching all this, and I'm watching everybody's facial expressions the entire time. I'm reading the whole room. I'm watching all of you. So if any of you city councilors right now are watching this video, guess what? I got eyes on all of you, especially that smelly commie piece of shit too. That guy's the worst. But I'm watching everybody to get their reaction of what they're thinking of, what they're feeling of, because guess what? It's a little bit hard to not show what you're thinking with facial expressions, because this is a lot. And here's the reason why. After Leroy gets done talking, I'm going to bring up something.
That was something that.
But yeah, everybody was like, yeah, we definitely don't want our social security numbers out there.
Any person could go online and find. Their personal addresses are online.
It's
their
true.
Personal phone numbers are online.
It's true.
We're not doing that.
Well, to be fair, it's all on your campaign reports. My address gets doxxed all the time. People post pictures of my house all the time trying to scare me. Good luck. Hey, guess what, pals? If you want to come out here and get me, I got a stream in the backyard. They ain't finding you.
Part of the stocks that the state does, they have a specific dollar amount. So if you own stock that's over a specific threshold, you have to disclose it, whether or not that business entity does anything with the state of Indiana. So for ours, we're only saying you have to disclose it if that business has any kind of interest with the city.
And are there consequences for not disclosing or forgetting to disclose?
So like I said, with the stock option, there is not technically. All this information would be public. Anyone can make an ethics complaint against a counselor. If that happens, there's an internal process for that. Depending on how that goes, it could then come before the ethics committee.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Here's why I thought this was interesting. Who does Leroy Robinson work for? I think, as far as I know, he still works for them. He works for CICF, which is the Central Indiana Community Foundation. He is part of the Director of Major Gifts. Now, this was back in 2019. Hold on. Let me scroll this down. There we go. That's not you. Right here. That. So, yeah. And CICF gets a ton of money from the state. Usually, a lot of it is from violence reduction grants. So, Leroy Robinson is probably hiding a lot. Well, let's continue.
Very good. Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have reservations about this as well.
Of course he does.
I work for a premier healthcare insurance company, which
of course.
does business with the city of Indianapolis. And you'd want me to divulge how much revenue they probably generate from that particular business. That would be...
That's not what he said. They want to know. He wants to know. The ethics committee wants to know is how much money is that premier insurance company getting from the city?
Unfair in terms of competition. So I think that would be a little bit far-reaching there. So
it's not.
Can you explain how that really is effective?
Yeah. So again, it's public funds that a council. So. Take this, for instance. The reason that the date of hire is on there, let's say if I'm just going to pick a random company, Milestone. They do a lot of business with the city of Indianapolis. If my date of hire was 10 years ago, I was elected to the council 4 years ago, well, there's clearly not a conflict of interest there because Milestone's been receiving money from the city far longer than that. Let's say if Milestone didn't receive funding from the city.
It is kind of funny he brings up Milestone, right? So I should start looking up Milestone.
Or I used to work for a clothing company. This is a total hypothetical, but let's say that clothing company, as soon as I became elected counselor, a year after I became counselor, the city of Indianapolis decided we're going to order all of our uniforms from Councilor Bain's clothing company. That would be something that I would advocate against, but at the very least should be disclosed. So again, it's all about transparency and making sure that we are holding ourselves accountable with the public funds that our employers receive.
Now, just as a reminder, Ron Gibson was against the investigation on the Hogsett administration on the handling of the Thomas Cook thing. So he is...
Mr. President, I still have reservations regarding this proposal.
Of course he does. I mean, this guy is a total shill for the establishment. He also looks like the mascot for the Six Flags guy. Hold on. Can I find it? Hold on. Can I find it? Come on. Does he not? Does he not? Huh? Hey, I'm Ron Gibson. I'm a corrupt piece of shit, and I work for Premier Health Insurance Company. I'm here to protect Joe Hogsett, and my kid keeps running amok during council meetings. Oh, man, I absolutely love it. So he's basically saying that he's corrupt as fuck.
Did you have more?
On the record, I have reservations.
Very good. Chairman Graves.
Thanks, Mr. President. Council, can you talk a little bit about how much of a change it is from where we are currently with our disclosure expectations?
Yeah, so again, the biggest changes are going to be, you have to disclose the amount of money your employer is receiving from the city, rounded to the nearest 5,000th. Right now, you only have to disclose if it's more or less than $10,000. For me, the biggest change is the fact that we are agreeing to put it back online. Because right now, in order for any of my constituents to get my ethics disclosure, they have to do a public records request, which is different than every other level of government.
So I want you to look at Keith Graves' body language. Now, I was there like 5-10 seconds where I was writing this stuff down. I was making names and a few notes in my pad of like, oh, all right, who is against this whole thing? But look at the body language of Keith Graves. He's just like, oh man, hey man, my time might be up here, man. Oh boy, I don't like this one bit.
Madam Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. So is this more of an admin thing? Could not our council staff just go back to putting our information back online?
Hey, look at that. The sippy cup matches her dress.
Like we did several years ago? I'm not sure if it requires an amendment to our existing policies or ordinance.
Madam Counsel.
I'll let Councilor Bain answer.
Yeah.
Here's the Maggie Lewis questioning everything is like peak funny, and let me tell you why. This is why you come to me for all this information. So we got to take a trip back to 2021. What the crap is this? All right, Marion County prosecutor details plan to keep more children out of juvenile detention. This was back in 2021. Ryan Mears, this Nosferatu-looking motherfucker, he was like, you know what? Instead of prosecuting juveniles, non-violent juveniles, we're going to make sure that we scrub the record of any wrongdoing, and we're going to give them a 1-year membership to the Boys and Girls Clubs of Indianapolis. Okay, so instead of charging them and giving some kind of consequence for these non-violent offenders, we're just going to expunge their record and give them a gym membership. Well, guess who runs the Boys and Girls Club of Indianapolis? That's right, Maggie Lewis, the CEO of Boys and Girls Club of Indianapolis. So where is your taxpayer money going to? Well, they're going to gym memberships that Maggie Lewis is going to look so great on. Look at all these amazing gym memberships. She's the best CEO and whatever. And that is going to be going to the prosecutor's office so he can make sure that these dipshit clowns, juveniles, don't have to have any consequences. In fact, you know know what? They just need to stay busy and do a little bit of gym stuff. That's all. Yeah, because that's worked out so well. That's why we have a crazy amount of juveniles causing trouble over in downtown every weekend. Go and listen to Broadcastify. There is just one where there's a bunch of juveniles causing a ruckus off Market Street. I listen to stuff every weekend, especially right now when I'm building up mailers. Like, it's going to be too late. I'm going to have to go to bed after this video, but usually Friday and Saturday nights, I'm listening to Broadcastify while I'm putting stamps on mailers or putting magnets on door hangers or setting up what I'm going to do the following morning for door knocking. I listen to this stuff. I know what I'm talking about. And so when I see these city councilors having a problem with transparency, I'm connecting the dots.
I'm happy to speak to that. We used to do it. We used to post them online. The executive branch still posts theirs online. I guess you could request that we do that, but again, I think it's very important that we enshrine that. Should there ever be an instance where, I don't think the current leadership of this council would do this, but future leaderships of the council may want to not disclose information. So we just want to make sure there's that protection there. And again, we are also adding more transparency than what is currently on the ethics disclosure forms.
And I would like to add, there was no explanation as to why it was taken off of our website from before. So this would just ensure that it goes back on there and that we don't have to do a Records Act for that.
Mr. President, to my point, if Madam Council could respond, would this not just be an administrative practice of posting the information online?
The posting would be just administrative,
Okay.
right? But the additional information is what's being changed,
Thank you.
particularly in this ordinance.
So if this is about, I apologize, Mr. President. So if this is about transparency, if we could get that information back online, I think it solves itself. Thank you.
It doesn't. She's totally missing the point.
Very good. Additional comments from council. Chairwoman Carlino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree. Madam Leader, I think we have a public budget that we review. Several of us do even abstain from budgets as well. I do think it presents an undue burden to our employers as well.
She works for Recycle Force, in case you didn't know. That whole thing is, they have a probably pretty good HR department.
So I would be in favor of posting those again, and
plus there's
I don't think I can be in support of this proposal tonight.
Which tells me she's also very corrupt. Andy Nielsen, Nick Roberts, Jesse Brown, Jared Evans all don't have full-time jobs, so they don't have to worry about it.
Good. Chairman, I'm sorry. Councilor Brown.
Promotion. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I would encourage all of us to vote for this proposal. It seems like a very minor ask. The public, I think, has sincere concerns about transparency in city government right now. I don't think that's the fault of this body, but I do think that we would be...
Are we sure about that?
...wise to show that we want transparency. We want our constituents to know that there's no conflict of interest, which we don't have. Thank you.
Well, obviously there is a conflict of interest if people are not wanting to sign up for this thing. But the problem is, he is so gung-ho on one side. It's like, clearly it can't be because of us, but also at the same time, we're not wanting to vote yes on this thing.
Chairman Barth.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Bain, just real quick. On the stock component, I'm trying to conceptualize how a mutual fund would fit into that scenario.
Yeah, I'm happy to defer to Council Pierce on this, but if you have your money invested in a mutual fund, then you are not doing a direct investment into a company that does business with the city of Indianapolis.
Okay, so it's only a direct stock purchase, not through a mutual fund. So you could own the stock through a mutual fund.
Yeah, so let's say, for instance, you own $50,000 in Tesla stock. You don't have to disclose that because the city of Indianapolis does not have an ongoing relationship with Tesla. The main point was like that definition that that example I used earlier, where we do receive as counselors privileged information, and we want to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable and that we are policing ourselves and making sure that that's not something that we would do.
Well, going back to Councilor Robinson's comment. Let's say you want to invest in the stock market and you buy into a fund that's indexed to the healthcare sector, and within the healthcare sector you have Elanco and you have Lilly and you have Roe. I mean, you have multiple Indianapolis companies that potentially could get some benefit for construction or hiring new people, but it's not a active decision you made. You made a decision to buy into an index fund. However, you are, in that scenario, owning stock through a mutual fund that gets a benefit for the city. So help me with that scenario.
Yeah, so you would not have to report that. You would only have to report it if it's a direct investment
And
that you yourself would make. If it's a mutual fund doing it on your behalf, that is not something that you would have to disclose.
May I direct this to the council, Mr. President?
Chairman, please go ahead.
Thank you, Council. So in this scenario, the Councilor Bain is, and thank you for your response. So a direct purchase. So help me, if I buy this mythical index fund that I just created, if I purchase that, I'm directly purchasing that. How is that different than if I'm directly purchasing Eli Lilly or Elanco or something like that?
I think the intent is for you not to purchase a stock from a company that is directly doing some business with
There you go.
I think we kind of looked at mutual funds as mutual funds. If it's a mutual fund that has a number of different companies in it, you can't say take Lilly out of that mutual fund and still be part of that mutual fund, right? So you can purchase, a interest in a mutual fund without violating this.
And in your view, the definition is very clear in that respect?
Well, it's clear. I think it's clear enough for the intent. I think that, yeah, we were not looking for it directly.
I mean, I want to support this, but I feel like this component might not be fully baked. I wonder if you'd be willing to take this back to committee to play with, to adjust this particular moment.
So move.
Well, how about that?
Unbelievable. I was so pissed off. I'm just like shaking my head the whole time. Like, are you fucking kidding me right now? This is unacceptable to me. And look at this. Leroy Robinson with his smirk. And John Bart's like, huh?
All right, so was there a
well.
motion there? Sorry.
Yes, Mr. President, I move that we send the proposal back to committee.
All right, well, that motion's been moved and seconded. May we have a little bit of discussion on that? Councilor Bain.
Yeah, I'm fine if we want to send this back to committee, given that, if we pass it now, if we pass in November, if we pass it in December, it doesn't take effect until next year. So whether we pass it now or in January, it doesn't really matter. The next year's ethics disclosures is what this would be targeting. So it would not, again, it wouldn't really affect us as a body for the next few years, or next few months, sorry.
Excellent. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Did something occur to make this, put this on your agenda that we should be aware of? Or this?
Maybe we just want to be transparent so people might be able to start trusting the government, even though, we won't. Because when you have people that do not want to vote for transparency, we automatically do not trust you. So there is a whole list of people now that we do not trust.
No, I was just assigned to the ethics committee earlier this year for the first time, and one of the charges of the ethics committee is to annually see if there's any improvements that we can make to the council ethics form and the disclosures in the process, and I think it's pretty clear that there are.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilor Delaney.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the amendment in front of, or the amendment, the proposal in front of me, and I'm looking at the section related to the stock, and I know that you're going to send it back to committee, but I just wanted to make a point that I see in reading it, that when you're talking about the stocks, it appears that you're referring to funds that the company is purchasing and not even the individual counselor. So I just take it, hopefully that you will look at that when you go back to clarify the language in there and what you mean. Thank you.
Very good. Any additional comments from councilors? Councilor Hart. Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to speak up and thank the chairwoman and counselor for putting the work to it. You know, I've been on the ethics committee. This has been my 5th year, and this is the first time that we've actually gone through this process. So I just want to, I know they've put a lot of work into it, and we've met regularly because of it. I think it's a very important thing to do and a prudent thing to do, considering at least in the last 5 years it hasn't been updated. So I personally do support it, regardless of where it's coming from. I don't think if you don't have anything to hide, there's no big deal of just filling out the form. So I'll continue to support it from that way, and look forward to seeing it committee again.
Dude, being in that room with pro-Palestine people that all agree that we need more transparency, that should really be making the Democrats think, like, maybe we made the bad decision on voting no on this thing. But that's the problem. They have such a God complex, and they think they can do nothing wrong, that they are the voice of reason. Trust us, we are the government. And their hubris, the moxie on these people, and they just don't get it at all. And we saw this in 2020 when Brian Maury said that he wanted to reopen everything, and then John Barth, Jessica McCormick, Allie Brown, Kristen Jones, Dan Boots, they all are like, no, I don't think we should. We should just make our small businesses suffer. We should totally kill the city and make over 8,000 people leave within a few years and go to the outside counties. Like, they still don't get it. And it just baffles me every time.
All right, very good. Councilor Delaney.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I wanted to echo what Councilor Hart said. I think it's important that we are paying attention to our ethics in this body, and I think the idea of posting them online is a great idea. And I just want to be clear that I do support this proposal generally, but I'm happy that
I don't think you do.
Committee as well, just to make sure that it's cleared up. So thank you for all the work that you've done as well.
I don't think she does, because she would have just been like, nope, I would have been okay with voting yes on this today, because I am such a believer in that. I think someone should have made that statement. Plus, like, to go back to what Michael Paul Hart said, hey, this is the first time we're doing it. And if you look at the videos for the Ethics Committee, they have not had a meeting. Before this 2024, they have not had a meeting since 2019. That means they had about 5 years of no meetings. So, and hopefully I will remember this, but I will say it right now. During the Hogsett had basically like a press conference on, not today, but this week, about signing the investigation committee on the handling of the Thomas Cook thing. I think Abdul asked about that. It's like, hey, when you became mayor, shouldn't you have looked at all these things and blah, blah, blah. It's like, hey, why isn't anybody asking that nobody's looked at the ethics committee handbook or how things are handled in the last 5 years? Where's the media on all of that? What about the last 4 years of complete Democrat control? Nobody gave a shit back then either.
All right, very good. Any additional comments? All right, well, we have a motion and a second to return 24-284 back to committee. Let us take it to the board for vote. Motion.
And here's the deal, too. Josh Bain made a great point. Hey, guess what? None of this stuff is happening until next year. So whether it's happening now, well, it's happening in January. Guess what? It's still happening in March. We're not moving that date at all there, folks. And this is a message to all of you counselors that might be watching this video. I'm going to be up on all this stuff. You think that I'm not already prepping myself? Like, for example, Dan Boots works for some firm, and he obviously does work for the city. And right now, I'm trying to find it. I don't see it right now. I will find it. His company donated money to the Hogsett campaign. There's like, let me just show it up. Yeah, Bingham Green of Brown. But I think they like merged with somebody. But I was going through the Hogsett campaign finance report today. which I will show why in a little bit. And I saw that, I'm like, I recognize that place. But we're going to go into the next proposal, which was with the investigation. And this is where, like, the big one is at. There's a lot of talking about this. It's very interesting. Let me get to it.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 287, 2024 creates an investigative committee that contracts with an independent law and/or human resources firm or firms to thoroughly examine and investigate allegations against members of the Hogsett administration and recommend policy changes and further action to address gaps in human resources policy and code, and recommends further immediate action regarding sexual harassment training and workplace relationships. This proposal came through committee 11-0, and I do move for its passage this evening.
Okay, so last month there were two proposals introduced. This 287, which is originally to update the sexual harassment handbook, I think it was, and then there was 288, which was going to make a investigation committee on the handling of the Thomas Cook situation. Now, 287 was brought to you by Democrats, which was kind of like, okay, yeah, that we were going to do that anyway. At the 288 by Republicans, if I remember that right. If I'm wrong, correct me, but that's basically what it was. Republicans wanted to open up an investigation, and then the Democrats only wanted to update the handbook or how the handling of sexual harassment issues. But so, and trust me, this is going to get brought up. There's a reason why I'm bringing it up.
Motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there comments from councilors? Councilor Bain.
Thank you, Mr. President. When this was brought up in committee, I did have a couple amendments that I wanted to make, but just due to the timing of that, we weren't able to get it in before the deadline. So apologies for having to bring this up in full council, where I know work like this should really be conducted in committee. So, Mr. President, I move to amend proposal number 287, 2020.
There it is. Found it. Or I said Bootsy. Boom, right there, $15,000. Bam! I'm so good. This is what I do, all right? You're not going to hide anything from me. Of course, Vop Osley is doing a very good job on that right now. He created his own pack, so it's going to be harder for me to find stuff.
24, by adding the double underline and highlighted language to read as follows. All documents collected or received by the independent law firm and its work product shall be made available to any committee member upon request.
Second. Sorry, I heard a motion. Was there a second? Second. All right, very good. Let's have some discussion on this proposed amendment. Councilor Cahill.
Mr. President, I must recuse myself from all amendments and proposal 287.
I did not understand this part, and I still can't get a straight answer of why this is happening. Now, I heard a reason why, but I don't know.
Very good. Councilor Bain.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to speak on the amendment and give a very high-level brief overview. All this amendment says is that the work product received by the investigating committee would have to be turned over upon request by any member of the investigating committee. So you can't have, let's say, one member finds information from the law firm, and you have another committee member that requests that information. It can't be held back. So each of the 7 members would be able to get all the information sent to any member of the committee, and that independent law firm will not be able to withhold information from any member of the committee.
Vice President Brown.
So a question on this. So let's say our...
Man, Brown has got that Ozempic face. It's like that melty kind of thing. Google it.
law firm has pulled Thomas Cook's HR file, okay? And they're going through it, and one of the committee members decides they want to see that file. So now the law firm has to send that file to everybody. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they would only need to submit it to the member that is requesting it. That being said, I think Section 7, if we're worried about any kind of identifying information, getting to one particular counselor, or, you know, God forbid, one particular counselor is wanting to, you know, expose a victim, or, you know, get the identity out there of a victim, which is something we obviously want to protect. Section 7 covers that. So it's not like a counselor would be able to go on a vendetta using this language to out a victim that doesn't want their information out there.
Thank you.
And here's the deal.
My concern.
We're going to wait. Hold on.
Not that I believe that anyone sitting in this room has that ill intent. My concern is that information that either is important to the investigation, important to safety of people, is going to get to us, and when stuff gets to us, it can be gotten. And that's where I get scared on this. So being able to just dial up the law firm, reach out to them and say, we want to see X, makes me nervous. Because there is a reason we separated that part of the investigation from the HR investigation. And we did that intentionally to protect the victims. We did that intentionally to protect other people who are interested in still reporting, and we're seeing that because we are doing this in a victim-centered approach, we are seeing multiple people report. I understand the intention of what you're saying, and I do commend, and you have worked with me from the very beginning on talking about all this stuff. I am still concerned that what we did with the amendment to 287 in Rules Committee set up not necessarily a firewall, but a way to protect people and to protect information from getting out. Because while things are in best intention, it's very easy to know that, I mean, we in general as a council leak like a sieve. And I get scared on the information that will be handed out that puts people in jeopardy, not just in jeopardy for their mental and emotional health, for their job safety, for all that kind of stuff. Because there could be people who are not mentioned as victims who might not need their identifying information but are listed in other people's HR files that have no idea. There may be reporters in there, people who report on these things that aren't the victims, whose name might not be in there, but they've reported they saw somebody do something. I just get really nervous about this. And I think when we hire a firm, which is the intention, whether it's a law firm, HR firm, or both, we are hiring them because we believe in their professional experience and we trust the work that they're going to do. So the idea that any of us could just, the part is not the sharing. That's not a problem, the sharing amongst counselors. The part that bothers me in this amendment is the ability for any one of us, anyone on that committee, to just email the law firm and get the information. And we intentionally set up 287
my God, she's filibustering us.
The law firm is doing from our job as counsel.
Yes, we get it.
And
keep it going.
Come to us. So that's where my concern is, and that's why I would not be supporting this amendment.
Okay, well, first off, the only people that you have to worry about leaking stuff are people on your team. And here's why. So, spoiler alert for everybody out there. This was Friday night, late Friday night, and I already know that this gets passed. In fact, the following day, they ended up releasing the names of who's actually going to be on it. So, I decided to do a little bit of research myself on to find out these campaign reports. And Lottie freaking da, these are the people. So there's 5 Democrats, 2 Republicans. The 2 Republicans are Brian Maury and Josh Bain, which is amazing. Very happy about that. But the 5 Democrats are Renee Allen, which is the person who took over for Lakeisha Jackson, Andy Nielsen, Krista Carlino, Kristen Jones, and Jessica McCormick. So I decided to go through their campaign reports, and lo and behold, guess who gave them money? At first, I thought it was just Carlino. Funny enough, it wasn't, though. So Matt Pleasant got fired. He used to work for DMD, but then he got fired because of overwhelming evidence of what they found for sexual harassment. Now, I'm not going to say what I heard of what the overwhelming evidence was because they're never going to release that, and I'm not going to say what I heard from reliable sources, and it wasn't from Republicans, okay? Because I am a man of my word, and I do not release anything unless they want me to. So, Andy Nielsen, He got $100 from Matt Pleasant. Carlino, this is just from even from 2023, she got $250. In 2021, she got $150. So I tell you what, Thomas Cook was probably trying to rizz up Carlino. I wonder if that's why she doesn't have a ring on her left finger anymore. Someone didn't know how to keep the promise. Kristen Jones got $100 last year, $250 in 2021. Also, she got money from Matt Pleasant, $25. I know nothing. $40 in 2021. Here is the most interesting thing. Caroline Ellert. She was one of the people that Thomas Cook sexually harassed. Do with that what you want. I thought it was interesting. That's all. And then my city councilor got quite a bit of money from Thomas Cook. $500 last year. Did I put this in twice? She does not do this right. So it was actually more than that. So 250, 250, 250, 750. She got 750 last year and then 150 back in 2021. Yeah. So I don't know about you, but that seems like a conflict of interest. If you now imagine if this just flip it. Say that it was Republicans and Democrat, right? And then you had a majority of Republicans that were investigating someone that had worked for a Republican administration, and they found this stuff out. Everybody would be losing their mind right now over this, but yet no one is talking about it at all. Abdul reposted it. Lauren Roberts, who is the other person that Cook sexually harassed, she reposted it. Tony Katz reposted it, but not a single media outlet is talking about it. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Anyway, let's keep it going.
Very good, thank you. Madam Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree, Madam Vice President. I think that what this proposed amendment would do would kill the independent investigation portion of it.
I don't think it would,
we believe as a body that there needs to be an investigation, but to make sure that it's truly independent and we don't have that we aren't doing some of that work ourselves because we are biased. So with
5-2 biased.
I cannot support Councilor Bain's amendment tonight, Mr. President.
How rich is that coming from the woman with no more left ring that got money from Thomas Cook? How rich is that?
Very good. Councilor Delaney.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. President. I read our new
I should look into Renee Allen.
Be the exact opposite of what Councilors Carlino and Vice President Brown said. I'm under the understanding that whatever we requested from, or whatever the law firm requested, would become publicly requested information. So I read Councilor Bain's amendment as duplicative. And the reason I bring that up is because I think it's important discussion that we're having, that I read it differently than you both do. And so that's what I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
All right, very good. Additional comments?
I don't disagree to a
Carlino.
point because I do believe that the way the language is written, that investigation and conclusions that happen through the firm will be presented to the committee and be available to the committee as a whole. And so I don't disagree, but not that we are doing some of that nitty-gritty HR file level, where there are things disclosed that we should not be part and parcel to.
Wait, is that the person?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will again just clarify that Section 7 of the current proposal protects any identifying information from making it to a counselor.
Wait, that's
This
the one?
amendment does not jeopardize that in any way. All it does is make sure that you can't have one member, let's say the chair of whatever this investigating committee is, cannot withhold information from the other 6 members on the investigating committee. That's all it does.
Vice Chair Boots.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too would share the concerns of Councilor Delaney in reading this from a legal filter. It's ambiguous, and ambiguity in the language is dangerous.
Dangerous.
Section 7, as I read, does not do what Councilor Bain says it does. It just says it refrains from identifying any information and shall ensure that no identifying information shall be disclosed to any member of the public. My concern is any type of investigations, in my experience, there's all kinds of information discovered, half of which is irrelevant and half of it's inflammatory and derogatory of others that may not even be involved in the investigation. That's what I'm concerned about.
Oh, man. Oh. So Caroline Ellert also donated money to Breanne Delaney. That's hilarious. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Whoop. Yeah, gave $100 to Breanne Delaney. I wanted to make sure I took the address off. I am not doxing anybody. I am not a scumbag like that. No, I do have a that I'm a scumbag, but everybody's also dumb. So
collateral damage caused by information that gets out that is not central to the purpose of the investigation. So that's my concern, that not everyone needs to see this information.
oh yeah, there it is, boys. There it is. Oh, I am the best. Am I not the best? No one's talking about this at all. Hold on. Jeez. I am so awesome right now. You're just going to make me go through everybody's now. I got to save it. Yeah. Boom, there we go. Thomas Cook gave $500 to Breanne Delaney, but no one's talking about it. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You're going to make me go through everybody's campaign report now, aren't you? I was just going to go through those 5, but now you're going to make me go through every single one so I can call everybody out. Unbelievable. See, this is what annoys the crap out of me. Let me rant for 30 seconds, all right? Let me just cook for a second. Not Thomas Cook, but my kind of cooking. People do not want to listen to the truth at all. And then when I show them the truth, they're like, oh, well, you know, we can't talk about that. That would totally set a different narrative. That people, the guy that everybody's bitching about, the guy that that all these women on the city council are saying this guy was an evil person. They all got money for him. Are they going to give the money back or not? That's what I want to know. So what are we going to do? Huh? Now you're going to make me go through everybody's campaign reports, and I got other things to do.
That's what the report is for, and the committee acts on the report by the professional firm hired. So I would encourage us to vote down the amendment.
Very good. Thank you. Additional comments from councilors?
A lot of people from Indigo, too.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for bringing this amendment, Councilor Bain. I do think my colleagues have convinced me. I started out at the beginning of this thinking I was going to vote for this. What I would support is an agreement among the members of the investigative committee that any work product provided to one member is also provided to the other 6. I don't think this actually says that. If it did, I would vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments from councilors? All right, we have an amendment on the floor. If there are no additional comments, let's take it to the board for a vote. All right. The motion or the amendment fails. 21 nays and 2 yeas.
Come on, buddy.
And 1 abstention. Alan has 1. There. Now you have a yellow button. Very good. All right, so 21 nays, 2 yeas, and 1 abstention. So let's get back to the meat of proposal number 287. Are there Any comments from councilors on the proposal as originally written? Councilor Bain.
Thank you, Mr. President. On to the second amendment. Mr. President, I move to further amend proposal number 287, 2024 by deleting the language that is stricken through and highlighted to read as follows. Subpoenas may be requested
Abby
by
Brands.
a member of the committee.
Doesn't she work for the
What
city?
it strikes through is that it would take a majority vote of the committee. And Mr. President, I so move.
Oh, there it is again. Gave him another $100.
It's been properly moved and seconded.
Oh my
Other
God!
comments?
I am the best. I am the
President Byrne.
best.
I'll speak to this in the same way. No one counselor should have all that power. I mean, I sound like a Kanye West lyric, but no one should have that much power. No one of us should have that much power. There's too much important information in people's HR files for one counselor who has their motivations to do what they want to do to pull files and subpoena. That's why a simple majority of 4 of that committee makes sense.
But you have 5 Democrats and 2 Republicans.
If it is important and if we're going to share documents between everybody, then why can't the people on that committee convince 3 others on that committee?
How much you want to bet that I find that Allie Brown got money
We
from
have to
Thomas
protect
Cook as
people
well?
First. We have to protect people first, and we have to remember what our job is as counselors. Our job as counselors is to find the holes in these policies and fix those holes. Our job.
You have been in office for 4 years. Let's not forget, she has been in office for 4 years, and at no point has she offered to change any kind of policy at all.
Job as counselors is we have putting off to the law firm to do the investigation. Our job is not to go into people's personnel files. Our job is to figure out where the systems went wrong and fix those systems so this never happens.
She's going to
again.
filibuster again.
That's what we should be focusing on. And if one counselor has that kind of subpoena power, that is dangerous, and that puts every employee in this enterprise at the risk and at the whims of the 7 counselors on that
Oh
committee.
my God!
'Cause if you don't
Shut
like them,
up!
why can't you just go pull their HR file? Why can't you just go subpoena their stuff?
Why can't you do
This
that?
is why
Honestly,
you need to have a simple majority, because otherwise every employee at the enterprise, their whole job is at risk to the 7 people on the council.
for what? Their job? How is their job any bit at risk?
Councilor Bain.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would respectfully disagree with the Vice President. Again, Section 7 mandates that any information we receive does not have that information, and I don't know why we couldn't find 7 counselors on this that you would know wouldn't go on a vendetta in this situation to target a victim in the city council enterprise. Wow. Well, if you think a Republican member of this investigating committee would do that when it was our idea in the first place,
boom, exactly,
to target a victim, I think that's ridiculous. And I'd encourage my members of caucus to vote yes. I would encourage the majority caucus to vote yes, because all this does is mandate that you can't have a select majority on this investigating committee not doing the full work that needs to be done. All this is accountability within the investigating committee to make sure that any counselor can subpoena information that's in line with the rest of the proposal, which again includes Section 7. And if this was an issue, all you have to do is look at Congress. Every standing committee, every member of Congress, whether in the majority or the minority, has the ability to request this kind of information, so that there's no reason why we can't do it here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Booths.
Thank you, Mr. President. My concern with adopting this amendment, that it would turn it into a witch hunt, which is exactly what we do not want to do, in my opinion. If a simple majority cannot decide or have a consensus that it's important to search for certain documents, then one person should not have that absolute power. So, and I've heard it said before that this is how other investigative committees at the state and federal level operate, and I disagree with that premise as well. We all recall the January 6th National Committee The big issue was voting on whether they would subpoena records by a majority of the committee. No one single member could do that, nor should we have a situation here one single member can exert so much authority. So I encourage our majority people here to vote down this amendment.
Very good.
I want to go back to what he just said.
Agree with that premise as well. We all recall the January 6th National Committee. The big issue was voting on whether they would subpoena records by a majority of the committee. No one single member could do that, nor should we have a situation here one single member can exert so much authority. So I encourage our majority people here to vote down this amendment.
You know, so I decided to do a little chat GPT with this, and I said, do select committee members have the power to subpoena anyone? It said, yes, select committee members do have the power to issue subpoenas. When a select committee, such as the Jan 6 committee is formed, is typically given broad investigative authority, which includes the ability to issue subpoenas for documents and testimony. Kind of weird, right? Kind of weird. If anybody's watching this, please correct me. Just saying.
Very good. Councilor Bain.
Thank you. Thank you. Just to correct the record on that, I stated that in standing committees in Congress, each member has the ability to do this. The January 6th committee was a select committee in Congress, in which case that process is outlined by the Speaker of the House when they create the select committee. In every standing committee, every member of Congress has the ability to do this.
Vice Chair Boots.
Just, and I don't want to get into a point counterpoint, but this is definitely a select committee for this caucus here and for both parties, and this power should be exercised very cautiously and very carefully. Thank you.
Very good. Chairwoman McCormick.
If I could just maybe add on to my colleague here, this is a once and a never again committee, please.
Man, she looks like crap. Fiona looks like garbage right now.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to echo Vice President Brown's statements and Councilor Boots' statements that our number one priority needs to make sure that we're protecting the victims and witnesses and bystanders that have been involved in this and are employees of the city. I think that needs to be our number one concern, and having one person have the power, I know that's already been stated, I think that puts that in jeopardy, and so I support my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Hart.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this could go for the amendment and the full proposal. Just to make sure we're all clear when we're voting on either one of these things. Section 7's been mentioned on the previous amendment, this amendment, and it's part of the full proposal. Just for my clarity and everybody else's, the council that we have to defer to is Councilor Pierce behind you for our ultimate decision on what we're looking at from a legal perspective. And my question is, does Section 7 do what we've heard here and prohibit personal identifiable information from coming to the members of the standing or the select committee?
Are you asking Councilor Pierce
Councilor Pierce.
her opinion?
Yes, sir. I'm asking Councilor Pierce.
Councilor Pierce, are you prepared to give a response to this?
To the best of my ability. You're still subject to, the committee will still be subject to the public records laws. So if there's something you get that's subject to open door laws and public records laws, you'd have to disclose that. So I guess if you don't get it, then you don't have to disclose it. But if you get information that is subject to the open doors laws, you have to disclose that.
So just to confirm, if it's dependent on who's sending us information, if they send, or not us, but the committee, whoever's on that committee, if they receive redacted information, then there's going to be no way that they're going to see a name. But if by chance that committee is then sent information with a name by accident or purpose, then that information could be requested.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
Chairwoman McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think on this line of conversation, we're human and we make error, and even though we will hire a reputable and good third party law firm or HR firm to do this, there could make an error, and this is an area where we could see that that could fall through the cracks and information could get out, right? So this is just like a double line of protection. I think it just adds another layer of protection because we can make errors. As human, we do make errors, and we want to prevent that as far as possible to protect our victims, our survivors. And another thing that we have to think about is the information that we are going to get and what we will see is going to be triggering not only for those of us that might be on the committee, our colleagues as well, but for the people that will be watching and listening to the stories that we're telling. And we don't necessarily need to be telling the stories of what has happened to the victims who are unnamed. We don't need to know. We don't need to go into detail and to have that information be requested, because the public doesn't need to know the dirty details of the stories. Just the fact the stories are there is enough.
Oh my God!
And that's
Shut
what we
up.
need to keep our eyes on. Thank you.
So she's saying, hey, you know what? People make mistakes sometimes. If one person, if it requests information and that information gets out, it doesn't get redacted, there might be a problem. But it won't be a problem if we all agree on the information and it still comes out and it's not redacted. Like, it could happen either way, man. Listen, Fiona, we understand that you're trying to protect Thomas Cook, but just try not to make it so obvious.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, colleagues on both sides, for, I think, some healthy debate here. This is another one where I do plan on voting no on this amendment.
Of course you do.
After actually being advised to by some of the named victims who have come forward. So I will follow their lead on that. I will say that had we not chosen to have a 5 Democrat to 2 Republican makeup of the committee, I don't think this would be as contentious, because I think there's some really good points. I don't think that one person should have those powers. Not that I don't trust anybody here, but I also think this looks a lot more political than I think any of us have in our hearts. And
because they made it political when you said, well, we're only going to allow you 5 Democrats. We're only going to allow 2 Republicans.
So I think that's the root of the problem here, which I hope we can keep in mind and try to avoid both it becoming a witch hunt and also it becoming one side versus the other, because I think we all have the incentive to make our city government work for everyone. Thanks.
Shut up, Tommy P.
Very good. Additional comments from councilors? All right. Let us take it to the board for a vote on an amendment, on the second amendment to Proposal 287.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Motion fails. 18 nays, 5 yeas, and 1 abstention. So let us go back then.
So obviously, you know, they approve how they wanted it. They got everything approved the way that they wanted it, because it's pretty obvious now. We know the 5 people that will be looking to protect Joe Hogsett and Thomas Cook. We all have to understand that. When you have people like Brianne Delaney, who got, you know, $100 last year, $500 in 2022 from Thomas Cook, I'm probably going to find more after this too. But here's the other thing too, that I brought this up on my Twitter today. So like I was saying before, Joe Hogsett had a press conference today or this week about, oh, I'm signing this investigation. Look at me. And I went and watched it. It was like 32 minutes, 33 minutes. And I said, well, this is kind of weird, because there's this one spot where somebody asked about the investigation on Thomas Cook. And it's like, well, who was the people that investigated him?
Ultimately, we did engage a private law firm to conduct the investigation.
Can you say what the law firm was?
It was Taft.
Well, would you look at that? Taft gave Hogsett $100,000 last year. Shocker, right? And I didn't even go down to when the investigation happened. I haven't looked through any of the 2017 campaign reports. I'm expecting to see the exact same thing. So now, and here's the worst part about this whole thing, and it's the worst. I absolutely hate it. Well, I don't hate it, but it's very annoying. Like just the line underneath hate. It is very obvious now who will be protecting the establishment. It's the people that love this whole way of life where they're getting invited to these parties. They're able to rub elbows with the scumbags of Indianapolis, all these elite people, and people like Carlino, Andy Nielsen, because Andy Nielsen is like their policy guy, and that means, hey, you're going to make sure that you only allow certain things to get subpoenaed, because we got to protect the establishment. We know that, and Renee Allen is the new kid on the block, and it's like, here you go, you're going to earn your stripes. Hey, don't you worry, we're going to take care of everything, and we'll take care of you down the road. And then McCormick and Carlino and Kristen Jones, all 100% establishment, and we now know that people like Brianne Delaney and Dan Boots, who that company gave money to Hogsett. It's just a bunch of handshakes and hand jobs, and I'm here to expose all of it. So these were the two proposals that I was really interested in doing, because it shows that they don't care about transparency, even from a stock level, and they definitely don't care about having a fair investigation on this whole thing. They only care about protecting the establishment. And you can bet your ass I will be keeping in my ear to the ground of what's going to be happening. But for the future, I will tell you right now, budget meetings are still happening. I'm going to do the public safety video because there was something that happened this week that I think we should all talk about, mostly with the police, because these lipshits just don't understand that it's not just the police issue. It's the prosecutor. It's the courts. The cops are a major component on this triangle of public safety, but if the other two are doing a lousy job, it's really not going to matter then. You can give the IMPD all the money in the world, but public safety will still be garbage if the prosecutors and the courts are not doing their job. But you know what? I'm just a guy screaming into the void while other people watch me, and I'm hoping that you like my videos. I know this was kind of a longer one. I do plan on doing the public safety one. It's going to be very busy until Election Day. It's like, I don't know, 40-something days now? I don't even know how many days. Actually, let's find out. It's on my website. Hey, it's on my website of how many days we have left. 52. Oh, it's only 52 days. Okay, well, either way. So I do plan on doing the public safety video. I'll put that out this weekend, and then I'll try and keep up with all the budget hearings of what's going on. And of course, I'll be at the full council. So until next time,